Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this Open Source Wednesday show. It's been long we see here, and I'm very happy to be here today to see everyone. Um, for those of us that are on holiday, how is the holiday going? The Muslim brethren are doing their a festival today. So, how's the festival going? As you are joining us, kindly drop into the chat. Let's see how you are feeling, how everything is going over there. So, going on to the show for today, we are here again with another powerful person. She has been doing a lot of things for the community, open source community generally. She has been here before, and I know every one of us that I've been checking the channel will have seen. I want to see her result once again, and many people are here. I excited to see you. Okay, so thanks so much for joining us, and I will be bringing our guests onto the stage. Rasa, good evening. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, thanks for having me for a second time. It's always good to chat with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for being our guest. You are the first person to come on show on this Open Source Wednesday. The first show that we had was you are the first person, and we really
Hello.
appreciate every bit of the part of that section of that show. People are like, oh, I want to see this person again, and I believe people are excited to being here, seeing you this evening.
Oh,
Okay, so because of our time, I think we can just get started. And yeah, I know many of our community members know you, but then it's not a bad idea for us to get a bit intro of yourself. From the last time you were here to today, a lot of things have changed about you. You've changed company, you've changed organization, you've built a lot of projects, you've worked with a lot of people. So tell us about yourself. Let's hear more about you. Yep.
yeah. When I was last on the show, I believe I worked at GitHub at the time as a developer advocate, and I was mostly focused on like open source, and I was also focused on GitHub Copilot and AI and all that. Now I've switched over to a different company called TBD. It is a business unit within Block. So Block owns a couple of companies, including Cash App, Tidal, what else? Square. I don't know. They own a ton of companies. So we that's like our parent company, and TBD is within that. And now I'm a staff developer advocate. And what we're working on right now, it is an open source project, but we're working on I guess like how your title says, like decentralizing the web.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you so much for that brief intro. It is because TBD is working on an open source project. That's why we're having you here today, because this is
Yeah.
an open source show where we talk about open shells and how people can get started in open source. So thank you so much for being here, and it's good we know you. So let's get started and talk about open source and decentralized web.
Yeah.
So what can you Okay, let's talk about decentralized web. When we say decentralized web, what do we mean? What are we trying to say?
Yeah, no, that is a good question. And I'll start by describing one of the SDKs that we're building. It's called Web5. And the way I would think of it, it's like an ecosystem to enable you to build decentralized applications. But here's the thing, I've seen a couple of questions you had on there. We're doing this completely without blockchain. So it's a little bit different, right? And I think the whole purpose of all of this, or there's multiple purposes, but one of those purposes is to make sure that users own what they're doing on the web. So right now, how the internet has evolved, it is while it is user controlled and a lot of this stuff is free, it's technically not free because our data is being sold, right? So like every time you do something on like Facebook or Twitter, they're sending that to different like agencies, and they're using our data to sell stuff back to us. So the idea is like you own your data and you own who that data gets shared with. In addition to that, there's also a reusability benefit. So we're adding on like this identity layer to the web. Right now, the way that the internet was created, I think even the creator of the World Wide Web said this as well. They didn't add an identity layer. So a lot of our identity is fragmented, where every time you use a new application, you have to create a new password, a new username. And you have to remember all those usernames or passwords or get a password manager, which can be like a lot, right? but why not be able to go across the web as a particular identity, like straightforward across the board, and be able to take your data with you? An example that Angie often gives is like, or gives me, is like, let's say you're used to using an airline, right? Like Delta.com or whatever, and you have certain preferences already set in Delta. You're like, yeah, this is my Sky Miles number. I usually like to go in first class, and I usually like the aisle seat. But now, if you move to British Airways or a different airline, you have to refill out all those forms. Why not move across the web as that same identity? It already knows your preferences, and you could take those with you if you wanted to. And then the last part of it is as well, we're even bringing, how do I say this? We're even allowing people to change the way they're doing identity management, like in physical real life. So right now, we take a lot of like, we have to take our ID cards with us everywhere, or like any other cards. But we have this tool called verifiable credentials, where in your phone, you can say like, hey, I want to store my ID. I want to store my health insurance card. I want to store my degree in my phone. So that's another thing we're doing, but I'll let you ask more questions because I just said a lot.
Yeah, yeah, that's a lot from your hand. Starting from the perspective of Tim Berners-Lee, talking about the privacy. I love the quote when I saw one of your talk. You talk about the mean girl on Wednesday, something like
Oh,
that. I
you
was
saw
like
that.
that quote is very, very powerful, talking about privacy on the internet and how people are abusing data on here. So thinking around that, definitely will think around getting a solution to solve that particular problem of privacy issue and getting losing data, getting access to your data, managing your data yourself, and all sort of things. Yeah, it's a very good idea, and I think people would love to contribute to that kind of project as we grow in the whole ecosystem. Okay, so moving on. Now that we've talked a bit about decentralized web, and we've seen a bit of correlation of that and open source. Can you tell us more from the perspective of open source, how open source contributes? When people are building security tools, they will be like, oh, if you don't open source it, people will not trust you because they need to audit the security tools they want to be using, talking about auditing of code and every other thing. So from that perspective, let's talk about the decentralized web or the Web 5 as a whole. How can open source, or how does open source really, really contribute into that as a whole?
Yeah, from the perspective I think of it, right? We're creating something for users, or we're creating a web that users get to own their privacy and their direction. So we don't want to do this on our own without the input and perspective of other people who would be using this web. So we open sourced it to basically make sure that we're serving the people, and then also we're getting their input. And I think things are always better open source because you never know. Like maybe we're thinking of solving a problem a particular way, but we have contributors who are like, wait, why not do it this way? Or I can help you get to this point faster. So a lot of times I know people when they think of open source, they're like, this could be a security issue or whatever. But I really think if you're going to build a new web or a new application in general, it's better when you bring in the community.
Yeah, I think from that perspective, community is key, and that is one of the power of open source. That's one of the thing open source is running over community of people. And I read one definition of open source from somebody. I don't know the person that put up the article. I cannot remember on top of my head now. The person said, open source is a platform for community to collaborate, a
Yeah.
place for you to get to interact with people that you never know, people that you've never talked to before, and being able to work with them instantly without going far. So the point the person was trying to make is open source is definitely based on community, and when community gain that trust, they believe in that project, they can contribute to it. So nice one. I think it's actually makes sense from that perspective as well. So yeah, before we go for, I think it will be good for us to think around. Okay, so now we know we talk about open source, we talk about Web 5. But then the web that we have before Web 5 or Web 3 or decentralized web, what's that web? Some people call it traditional web. So what's now the difference between the traditional web and the decentralized web?
Yeah, right now with the traditional web or some of the centralized systems today is that one of the things I mentioned, you don't own your data. Also, you have to have a password for each and every web application that you go on. You're like, okay, I got to remember this because each web app, since the internet was missing an identity layer, each web app had to kind of invent their own identity layer so that people will be able to come in and say this is who they are. Um, but yeah, I think mainly it's the fact that like, hey, you don't own and control what you do across the web, and I think users should be able to. And then there's no reusability factor as well. So I think in Web3 people had like an interesting idea or an interesting goal, but maybe it didn't always get to be executed the way that like people would have wanted it to. But the whole idea is like, hey, let's bring back that ownership to the user because we're the ones using the web. It's our data being shared. So we should be able to control when it's shared and when it's not.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. As an explanation to that, and to bring perspective to what we have been saying, I think it would be good to give kind of examples of these decentralized webs that we have been talking about. Okay, so do you have any example on top of your head you would like to share with us, or maybe
Of
Web
a
five or any other one you wish to share? Yeah.
Yeah, I can. I think one thing I can give an example of is Blue Sky, right? I don't know if you've used it before. It's not built with Web 5, but it is using some similar technologies as Web 5, and it's essentially a decentralized Twitter. So under the hood of your username, you have something called a decentralized identifier. And that's very much this similar thing that we use in Web 5 to be able to identify who you are throughout the web. Another tools, a couple of tools that I think are cool that were built with Web 5. There's one tool called Autonomy where you upload files onto this platform and you basically like let's say you put on a PDF or whatever other files that should be local to you and owned by you. These are stored in something called a decentralized web node. And once you upload those, he also implemented like an AI feature where you can say, hey, like I don't remember when my lease agreement ends and stuff like that. So instead of putting it up on like Google Drive or Dropbox, where Google or any other big tech company has control or access to that, or they can even shut down the platform after a while and you lost all your data. Now you have control over that and you can move that where you want. And then one last example is another product called or another company called Formfree. They created a product called Passport. And what Passport does is it connects users or borrowers to different loans, right? So instead of let me see how I can describe it, right? So usually the traditional way of trying to get a loan is you would like say, hey, here's all my information. Will you accept me for a loan? And sometimes people reject you. Maybe that's due to unconscious bias. Maybe they're like, oh, we don't really think it would be safe to take someone on who's black or who lives in this particular street or has this particular job. And so that reduces your chances at being able to acquire a loan. However, in this platform, you're able to only share the specific data that you want to. So you share just your credit score, and then loan officers say, hey, I'm interested in giving this person a loan. And you can swipe through and decide, like, yes, I want this loan officer or this bank. So it puts the borrower in control of choosing which loan they want to get.
Okay, well, okay, that's good. Talking about the control of data and the tools that are available there to do all the decentralized web that we are talking about. I think those three examples is enough for us to get started, and it's something that we can check out and see how they work behind the scene. Talking about putting your data out there or using those platforms that are not decentralized. One of the example I saw you one time using is the Google Podcasts. People
Ah, yeah.
using Google Podcast in the past got an email at the end of the day that we are shutting that Google Podcast. We are not using it again. And if you are a diehard fan of a Google Podcast, definitely you lose everything that you have access to.
Exactly.
Out, you will not be enjoying it the way you normally enjoy it. But then if it is decentralized, the idea of decentralization is there. You'll be basically safe at the end of the day. So I think it's a good example. So talking about this, I think one of the problem that we do have in using this platform that we have mentioned, others that we did not mention, is adoption. Okay, what can you say about the adoption of open source projects and the decentralized web generally? So, based on your experience working at TBD, and what have you seen people saying about the project? What have you seen the adoption rate and the way people are getting it out of your hand? Yep. Do you have anything to share about that?
Yeah, I think always in open source, to encourage adoption, you need authentic marketing, right? Like I know a lot of developers don't like marketing, but it's the reality. Like sometimes marketing doesn't look like, oh, buy this or whatever. Sometimes it's me talking on a live stream like this, or people writing a blog post. So that's what our team is currently working on, particularly my team, the DevRel team. We're currently working on like enabling the community, being available for them and supporting them in Discord, writing blog posts and educating people, just creating awareness. Right now, Web 5 is super new, right? We're not even at 1.0 yet. So people are still discovering about it. There's still some people are not too sure what it actually is. But the people who have joined our Discord, I see them excited. I see them building with it. Like I mentioned to you, there's already a couple of companies that I just mentioned that have built their tools and products around Web 5. So that adoption is happening. I don't expect it to happen at a rapid pace because it's a whole different way of thinking about how we build, develop, and use the web. But I think it's going to happen.
Yeah, definitely. Talking around the benefits and everything that you have to get using this platform, definitely you'll be interested in adopting it. Me and my team participated in the Web5 hackathon one time like that you and your team organized. So, but my team member, wow, they were very excited to use the tool. They were like, "Oh, they were just thinking about a lot of things to build with Web5, and definitely if they have the opportunity of building a production ready solution, or they have a full backup to build tools around this thing, they are very very well excited to do it. So basic point is people are seeing the potential and the importance of this particular decentralized web, particularly the Web5, to build solutions and build tools for general public and even for organization based use, or wherever thing anything wants anybody wants to build out there. So that will lead me to the next question that I would like to ask you, as regarding, okay, we've been able to pitch it to people, we've been able to talk to people to get to adopt it, and people have started using it. Is there a way we can tell people about the economic factor of these two that we are building, or how will I even put it? The sustainability of the decentralized web. That's one of the problem. People are thinking, oh, if I go into Web5 or if I go into decentralized web, is it not going to be tomorrow? People coming to me that, oh, there's nothing like decentralized web again. Let's go back to Web2. Let's go back to centralized web. So, what sort of things do you want to tell us around sustainability and, yeah, and economic importance? Yep.
Interesting. That's a really, really good question that they like that people might think, oh, we might go back from this. Okay, I do think right now it is an experimental stage, but we're not the only people who are working on this and towards this. There's a whole foundation called the Decentralized Identity Foundation, and there's funding. There's multiple companies that are involved in this. Some small, some big name companies that like Microsoft, Workday, Okta, right? So I think this is something that will happen. It's just going to take its time to happen. And I don't think that we're necessarily going to switch back. We're just right now trying to build out the foundation. So there's standards in place. Even the W3C, World Wide Web Consortium, the working group that basically sets standards for like how CSS is supposed to be or how accessibility is supposed to be. They've also set standards for how like identity is supposed to be. So there's a lot of people and organizations that are backing this move, and it's not like something that's just done randomly and people will be like, never mind, we don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for that. I think that's a bit of advice or encouragement or a backup that, oh, definitely this thing will work out at the end. Okay, and it's working out for a lot of people already. So at this point, I want to take a moment to shout out to our participants. Thank you all for joining. I can see Tayyib, I can see Drugs. That's not a name, but thank you so much for joining, and others. Kindly put your question down in the comment section. I will definitely get to that stage to pick them and answer them. Oh, no question is irrelevant. All questions are relevant here. Just ask your question around open source, around decentralized web, or wherever it is you want to talk about. Yep, we'll definitely get to you. So thank you so much for joining, everyone. Yeah, moving on. We are currently talking about the probably some of the misconception people will have, or people thinking about, okay, if I adopt it, is it sustainable? But then, do you have other misconception, or you've had people talking around, okay, these are the things that people are misunderstanding about this particular decentralized web that you would like to share about?
Yeah, I think when people hear decentralized web, they immediately think blockchain. And that makes sense, right? Because blockchain was like this popular thing at one point, and that's how people were building the web. So I think what people might be surprised to learn is we're not using blockchain at all within our system, right? We're enabling this decentralized web and enabling people to build decentralized applications without blockchain. We're using instead something called a decentralized web node, or a DWN, where people can locally store all of their data. And then we have this other tool called protocols, which allows you to say, I want to share this piece of data with this particular person. Like I can say, hey, I want to share this message with Rashid, but I want all the other messages or all my other documents to stay with me. So I think in blockchain things are more public. Like I don't really know how like blockchain ledgers work, but what from what I've heard, they're public. So I think that's one misconception people can have, because when they hear of this, they're like, oh, just another blockchain tool. We're suspicious. Is this crypto? Is another thing that people often wonder. It's not crypto. We're not selling a coin. We are instead using cryptographic methods. For identity. And I really think like my favorite part of Web 5 is the I think I mentioned this earlier, but I gave a lot of information, is the aspect of verifiable credentials, where instead of having to carry around all of these specific IDs like physical cards, you can carry it in your phone now. Like you have that option through verifiable credentials. I think that part is really cool. And I think that's not necessarily a misconception, but I don't think people know that that's what Web 5 can enable. And I'll give like one example of why it's so cool. Like, let's say you wanted to be able to like drink at a bar and you want to prove that you're of legal drinking age. Oftentimes, what we do now is we show our ID and we're like, hey, yeah, I am over, like, I don't know what the requirements are where you live, but I am over 21. I can drink, right? But with that, we're also revealing a lot of extra information about ourselves. We're revealing our full name, our address, our date of birth, and all that. And that's not necessarily what the bartender or liquor store or whatever person needs to know. So instead, you can have something called a verifiable credential that's issued to you by someone or an agency that the bartender would trust. So maybe that's the Department of Motor Vehicles or the passport office that just says, yeah, this person is over 21. You show it to them, you get alcohol. That way, you keep your privacy safe to you, your data private to you, I mean to say. And it's easy to carry around. It's convenient as well.
Yeah, I think that's some of the misconception, and I think people will be able to um, relate, most especially with the idea of blockchain, because I believe many of our participants here today they have that um, mindset or believe that when you hear decentralized web, you are talking about blockchain or you are talking about cryptocurrency or sort of thing. And yeah, so I can remember in one of my class a few days ago was a blockchain class, and there was argument in the class that okay, is this a cryptocurrency platform? Is this a blockchain platform? And all those sort of things. So we are able to know the difference between decentralized web and non-decentralized web, and the problem these tools are solving, whether it is crypto based or it is not crypto based. Some of us we do not know the difference between cryptography and cryptocurrency. Once we see crypto, we know it's crypto, So most of us get it wrong from that aspect as well. We just be like, okay, it's crypto, okay. We don't want to know whether it's followed by cryptographic or followed by cryptocurrency. So definitely there are different tools and they are solving different problems. Okay, thank you so much for sharing more light on that. Okay, so let's talk about probably how people can get started contributing to all those tools that we have been talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you have anything around that for us on getting started contributing to probably the Web5 as a whole, or the particular project you want to recommend for us, or wherever way you want it to go, you, you can go now.
Yes. I would say there's multiple ways to contribute. So if you want to contribute code wise, I'll share this. I'll share our GitHub organization with you because the name is a little long. It's like TBD something.
With some numbers like this.
Let me drop it in this chat, and then you can
Okay,
share it with the rest of them. But yeah,
all
that's
right.
our repository, and we have multiple projects. We have like Web5 JS. We also have tbdex.js, and then we have these SDKs in multiple programming languages, from JavaScript to Go um, to like Kotlin and Swift. Right now, we're actually, if you're familiar with Go and that's your thing, we actually have a couple of open issues, and we're excited to have people contribute to the Web5 Go project. So you can look at that. Another thing is, right, if you're like, I'm not too comfortable contributing like code, or I'm a little nervous, not really sure how the Web5 systems work, I would encourage you to contribute to our documentation site. I can help you. That's mainly where I work. So I'll update our documentation to reflect what changes have happened in our SDK. And I think it's kind of fun because it's a mixture of code and documentation. And then a last way that you can contribute, it doesn't have to be to our repositories. You can contribute by helping us create content, just talking about Web5, building with it as well, like trying out our documentation. Although that's not necessarily like contributing code, it helps us to become better and figure out how we can support our users. Also, joining our Discord might be a great start as well. Let me link that here too.
Okay. Yeah, I think
That's
yeah,
it.
nice. I think there's a lot of way to contribute to TBD,
Mm,
and one thing that I would like us to know as well is okay, TBD is not. We've talked about that actually. That okay, it's not the um only organization or the only place you can contribute. We all know that basically. So if you work around contributing code or contribute documentation or probably you cannot find the issues that you like, you can definitely reach out to Rizel. She will be definitely be very happy to help you out in any way. And apart from that, there are some other projects that you can still check out in the community that you can still contribute to. Definitely, you will enjoy contributing to them. We'll be sharing more about that later after the show. But then, if you want to kickstart your contribution journey, yeah, check out the GitHub repository or join the TBD community. Yeah, Discord channel is there. So check it out and go and do your thing. So moving on, let's talk about the legal part of the whole system. There's this private. We've been talking about privacy and every other thing that the decentralized bring to the ecosystem, and the problem they are solving. So now there are regulations from different organizations, should I call them organization or bodies that seem to, okay, let's protect people's data. We have different policy like ISO, like other policy that are out there to guide us in using our data, your PII, your personal identity or information or whatever thing they call it. There are rules that are guiding this, there are policies that are backing this thing up. So what are the challenges you can share with us that your team or the people building decentralized web are facing around this particular management of data and being able to decentralize people's data as a whole? I don't know, maybe that question is straightforward enough or I have to retake it.
Yeah, maybe you have to repeat it. I'm not sure.
Yeah. So the summary of the question is basically, okay, there are regulatory bodies that are seen to how data are being managed, be it PII or other data, which is personal identifiable information or other data. And here we are saying we are decentralizing it. So definitely there will be challenges around, okay, when you say you are decentralizing people's data, how do you manage this? How do you manage that? Do you have anything to share on that? That's the basic question.
Okay, let me see. I'm not too. I might not have a lot of insight yet on how it's working with regulating bodies. I do on Friday have a Twitch stream where I'm going to talk to a compliance product lead to kind of learn more about how the regulation and stuff like that goes. But what I do know is I think that a lot of government agencies and regulating bodies are looking for technologies like this. So it's not like we're trying to convince them; they're reaching out and looking. For example, in the U.S. right now, there are mobile driver's license, and I think you mentioned ISO. They follow like a specific ISO standard, and what they've been doing for mobile driver's license is they're using verifiable credentials. So a lot of those agencies are looking for like technologies that can be able to implement verifiable credentials to create mobile driver's license and other things like that. So I think and even I saw an article that Angie shared with me that like the White House is looking for a tool for cryptographic verification since there's a lot of deep fakes that are happening of elected officials. So it's not necessarily us trying to beg regulating bodies to work with us. Regulating bodies are like, hey, we have these requirements and how do we implement them? What technology agency can we work with that's using cryptography or using decentralized web to help us implement this?
Yeah, that's cool. I think that's one of the way to push the adoption of the whole system that we're talking about. Imagine governments are queuing to use this platform or waiting to get this um projects or these tools that we are building adopted. Definitely that's a win for us in the long run. So I think that's a nice one from the team side. Okay, moving on to some other question. Let's talk more about the developers, and because I believe most of our participants are either people who are developers. Okay, when I say developers, I don't mean people that write code. You may be writing code, you may be a content writer, you may be a designer. I'm using the word developer for everybody because we all develop. We are developing tools. We're developing solutions for people to use. So let's talk a bit about them. And let's start from probably the advice you have for them regarding the centralized web and getting started in open source. Let's start from that.
Yeah. So if you are some type of technologist and you want to get started in open source in general, I will always encourage people joining that whatever open source projects it is, their Discord. Like when I got started in open source, I joined their Discord, and that helped me a lot because I was able to connect and see not a literal face, but like at least an emoji of the person who's maintaining the project and be able to be like, hey, or I'm in an avatar of the person. And I would be able to be like, hey, I'm actually struggling on this particular part. I think before doing that, getting into open source was a little bit difficult for me. In terms of decentralized web, I will say I mean, not to promote Web 5 too much, but I would say like check out our documentation site at developer.tbd.website. Let me see if I could put it up really quickly.
Okay.
But that we have a lot of good documentation. There's like a learn section and a build section. So if you just wanted to learn about how it works and what's happening, that's a good place to start. And then from there, build your own projects or contribute to whatever we have and introduce yourself.
Yeah, I think one of the key things to take out of that is start contributing in one way or the other. That's the best way to get started. If you read the documentation from today to tomorrow or to next year and you're not doing anything, it's as good as not doing anything from the start. It's better for you to be sleeping and not doing anything at all. So, as you're reading the documentation, you're watching anything online, try doing it in real life. Contribute code, contribute documentation, TBD project or any other project out there, definitely. Basically, this is an announcement for everyone that are participating here today. Our next show will be having a core maintainer of one of the biggest projects in the open source community. So, it will be guiding us on from the perspective of maintainer what they are looking into, and this person has been in the open source community for long. Most of us are waiting for me to mention the person's name, but then you will see the announcement in the community. So if you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel, try to subscribe now so that you'll be part of us when we have the person to be this month. It's not going to be next month, so look out for that. So if you want to ask question around, okay, what are the maintainers, what are they looking out for when reviewing my code, when they want to accept the issue I created, when they want to accept my PR, all those questions, pack them together, come and ask next time that will be here in a few weeks time. Then you can now use that and adopt it or start applying it to other community that you are joining or other project that you are contributing to. But before then, check out the TBD community channel, which is the Discord server. Check out their GitHub repository to check the code you can contribute or the documentation you want to contribute. And lastly, let me share this link that it says share with me so that you can get to see the more documentation you can read and tools that will help you out on this. Okay, pull it up. Okay, so you can check out their website and be able to see a lot of things that you want to do out there. So moving on, because for our time we are out of time a bit, but then definitely we'll get to the end of the tunnel so that we can see the light that is at the end of the tunnel. So let's talk about the future or what the, the people that are building around decentralized web are envisioning. What are they seeing as the future? And yeah, any other thing that you feel like, okay, these are the things that we should look out for. These are the promised land that we are going. Definitely we want to hear more about that.
Yeah, I guess. I don't want to speak for all of TBD. I'll speak for myself and what I look forward to. And I think it's one, convenience of your identity. So not having to struggle to prove who you are. Let's say, like, I know I bought a house the other day and I had to put in so many documents. It was overwhelming. I'm looking forward to this future of being able to say, hey, this is really who I am. I have a verifiable credential in my phone. It's convenient to do that. I'm also looking forward to seeing like what people build with Web 5 and how they incorporate AI. I think right now one of the gripes about AI is that like people are using um they're using other people's data to build these AI tools. And a lot of people are like, I don't like that. I feel nervous about that. I see opportunities for Web 5 to be leveraged with those AI tools. In fact, right now there's a project called Kin AI, and it's kind of like ChatGPT, but built on Web 5. So all of the conversations you have within Kin, they stay in your phone. They stay local to you. They're not like with how ChatGPT, your data goes out to OpenAI and every other organization just to make sure that it refines the conversation for you. They have different methods of doing that. And it's a really cool experience. And one of the things that the CTO said he was envisioning is that through talking to that kin, that AI, it'll get a better chance at knowing and understanding you, to the point, this is what his goal is, to the point that it might set reminders like, oh, don't forget, like right now you wanted to journal, you wanted to take your medicine at 11 p.m. And he even wants, he envisions that eventually it can act as an agent on your behalf, maybe ordering a Starbucks for you every day at 9 a.m., but you've given it permission to do that and given it permission to share that data with Starbucks. So I think those are cool things to possibly look forward to. I don't know if, of course, if that will happen, but it sounds fun.
Yeah, definitely, it's fun to hear, and yeah, narrating that is good to hear actually. Yeah. Thank you for participating, our participants. Thanks so much for joining us. And as I said, thank you so much for answering and all our questions. At this point, we want to take questions from the chat. If you have any question at all, try your best to drop it in the chat. We'll be getting to that now. So drop your question. But before we take the question, I would like Rizet to take us through the movie called Mean Girl. I think that movie
Oh,
used to describe to narrate or relate Web 5 to us. And that topic we're not talking about on Open Source Wednesday. And Razel has talked about something on Wednesday. I want to remember the title. Why am I forgetting?
oh yeah, on Wednesdays we use Web 5. Okay,
On Wednesday we use Web 5. Yeah,
I
actually,
I
yeah.
retired that talk a little bit because I guess not everybody is so excited about what Mean Girls as me. But I did enjoy doing that talk. And if people have watched the movie Mean Girls, basically it's like there's this group of mean girls. They have this little book where they write mean stuff about people, but it was supposed to stay private to them. And one of the mean girls didn't follow the rules, and she shared all the data out with everybody. So I use that as an example of, you could have made this agreement with a technology organization or whatever to keep that data private to you, and then it ends up being shared when you didn't agree to that. Maybe the terms of conditions are changed. So I think I gave that as an example of being like, hey, let's rebuild a safe Web 5 burn book that people can write their data in, and they wouldn't, the terms of service wouldn't get changed on them. The data wouldn't get changed without their knowledge or shared without their knowledge.
That's cool. Listening to that story and relating it to Web 5. When you wanted to say, okay, we want to build a safe Web 5, you had the means of building it, but then when you answer the question yourself, was like, wow, this actually makes sense, and it's a good thing to do. I believe we don't have any question in the chat, and for that reason, and we're almost out of our time already. So for that reason, I would like to conclude on everything we've talked about on decentralized web, open source, and people contributing to use that in probably career, their career, focusing on building, focusing on contributing to make impact or do whatever they want to do. So in summary, give us a kind of advice or yeah.
Oh, I you broke up a lot for me, so I'm not sure what you said. But I think you
Oh
just
my
said it was a
goodness.
good session. I don't know. But thank you for
Yeah,
having me. It was really fun.
yeah, thank you so much for joining. Actually, the question I was asking, I believe you can hear me now.
Yeah, a little
Okay,
bit.
that's cool. Okay, so the question I was asking is for you to give us a big summary on everything we've talked about:
Oh,
decentralized web, open source. I'll give us word of encouragement and around that. So,
oh, awesome. Yeah, here's what I will say. Here's what my words of encouragement would be. I'm a person who embraces emerging technologies a lot, and I think it's good to stay curious and open to emerging technologies. Doesn't mean you have to adopt all of them, but I think it's good to be aware of how they're growing and how to build with them, just in case, like maybe your situation changes. Like we've seen with AI, there are a couple of people resistant, and there's some people who are suspicious, but some people who are embracing it. And I think the people who are embracing it are getting a chance to reap the benefits. So I'm saying like use open source to stay abreast of what emerging technologies are out there and how it can help to further your career and who you are.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I hear trying to jump on it and try exploring whatever tools you want to check out in decentralized web, and definitely just be partake in it and explore it. That's very good advice for us. Definitely, we'll definitely work around that, and I believe the participants joining us today would definitely love to take to that and see how they can grow in that space. So the announcement I made, don't forget, in a couple of weeks we'll be having a maintainer, and we'll be discussing the role and the perspective of maintainers in this open source community as a whole. So definitely come and join us. And if you've heard about Pixar projects, okay, you will be thinking around that person, and I think you will definitely see the announcement. So if you have not subscribed to this YouTube channel, please go to the comment section and check out around. We'll make a community post for you to figure it out. So follow Resell on Twitter at the username you are seeing on the, or let me call it X, so that I will not get confused. So you can reach out to her on X at that username BlackGetByte. And if you want to reach out to me personally on, be it GitHub or Twitter, yeah, that's my username, Tarash TA. As you can see it on the screen, I don't have to spell it again. So, Rosel, at this point, we want to appreciate you for coming. Thank you so much. So, thank you for coming. If this will be our show again, I'll show you that excitement. I will definitely come. We really appreciate you for doing that. Thanks so much for the impact you are creating the whole ecosystem of open source. Thank you so much for coming. And our participants, I will see you in few weeks' time to come and ask questions around open source from an open source maintainer, a big person in the community. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me and excited for your next show. Oh, you're frozen.